Awesome. Good morning, Bismarck Mandan, 1 million cups. Wow, lots of great folks in the audience today, both not real and virtual, sorry, but both in person and streaming. Is that that's the better way of saying that, right? Okay, we got it. My name is Janya Anderson, and I will be your MC today, and I am super excited because we have a couple of fabulous presenters. But we will get through a little bit of housekeeping, and then we will dive right in. Actually, before I even get into the slides, I have to give a quick shout out to the play that the props behind me are set up for. How many of you have seen the current production? It's called The Odd Couple. Any hands? Oh, you're missing out. All right, so I just got to say, being on this stage makes me want to play Trivial Pursuit. And if you want to understand what I mean by that, you need to come to the show. But anyway, it's its final weekend coming right up, called The Odd Couple, based on the Neil Simon play, and they call it The Odd Couple, the female version. So anyway, I haven't belly laughed that hard in a really long time. We went and saw it last weekend. All right, that's enough. This is a non-paid presentation. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and we will hit the road here. First of all, if you haven't downloaded the app, or if you have, if you would go ahead and check in. My friend Cody, who's sitting right here in the front row, she always checks me every single one MC to see if I have checked in. So I've started to check in like at about 8:15, and she doesn't usually check till 9, so I'm covered. All right. And don't worry, it doesn't like track your location or anything other than the fact that it lets us know you came to 1 million cups. All right. Next. So these are our fabulous sponsors. And in fact, this morning, I would really like to give a shout out to this one right up here, the CTB. All right, they are fantastic partners and part of this whole. Not only are they a sponsor, but we have 3 active members of our organizing committee who are with the CTB. Kirsten, who is right there, you'll see her probably doing a community announcement, and she asks all the social media questions for us. Lakin, who is up in the booth and who is our director today, and last but certainly not least, Tyler DeMar is up there. That gentleman, he organizes with all of the presenters to get their slide presentations and get them in. And in fact, I texted him at 10:30 last night, and he got back to me at 10:37. So we're talking super dedicated, and we are so grateful to them to have them as a partner and a big part of our 1 Million Cups organizing committee. Woohoo! Oh yes, thank you, thank you. Yes, not just a shout out, big applause. Thank you. Okay, I've got some first time 1 million cuppers today, right? Show of hands, how many of you, it's your first? Yes, all right. And while I'm doing that, I should give a shout out. We've got a big group of first timers up there. Those are the students of the Innovation School. So happy to have you here today. Can we give them a round of applause for coming? All right, woo! and they're waving back there. Okay, well, for my newbies, 1 million cups, if you're saying, what am I doing? What is this 1 million cups thing? 1 million cups, it's a free weekly program. We are here every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. And the idea is we put an entrepreneur or a community builder organization up on this stage, and they get to share their story. And their story includes their challenges and their successes and the whole thing about their journey. And the idea is that we ask them questions, we give them advice, whether they want it or not. But the whole premise behind 1 Million Cups is, can we change the face of our entrepreneurial startup community over 1 million cups of coffee? So it's very grassroots. All right. Now, also for my newbies, we're going to have 2 presenters today. 3 presenters, 2 different organizations. They're going to come up, they're going to share some information, then the second is going to come up, share some information, and then everyone's going to come up on, not everyone, they are going to come up on stage. I realized what I said. We're going to hang out in these chairs up here, and you're going to have a chance to ask questions or share comments. And so, just so you know, that's going to happen towards the end. And for those of you in person, you can raise your hand. And we've got this really super cool, this is the microphone hidden in the mug. So if you want to see the mug, you got to come up with a question. And then for you, those of you that are streaming, if you just put your questions in the comments, Kirsten will ask them on your behalf. And if you're in the room and you're feeling shy, you can also use hashtag 1MCND and ask your question that way as well. But honestly, the mug is totally worth getting over any shyness. Okay, it's really cool. All right. All right, now is the time in 1 Million Cups where we also always have community announcements. So if you've got something going on, some sort of event, and you want to share, you can come on down and present that. We've also got a few slides that we get to do. So first of all, the vaccine is now available to the Gen Pop. So if you are in that in the community of Gen Pop, and if getting the vaccine for COVID is on your to-do list, you are now free to go ahead and get that scheduled. Second of all, the Bismarck Mandan Pitch Challenge is tonight. It's a little too late to register, but the reason I am going to tell you about this is next week we are going to have some of the finalists from the Bismarck Mandan Pitch Challenge on this stage, right? So we want to let you know that that winner will be chosen tonight, and they will be fresh, and we will grab them and bring them to our stage. Now I can see that Lakin is lurking, which means I probably have, ha-ha.
I know you mean that in the kindest, gentlest way possible. Thank you. It's something I've worked hard at, lurking. Anyway, my name is Lakin Ani. I wanted to tell you about Core Women, which we have coming up tomorrow afternoon at the Paddle Trap, 4:30 to 6 p.m. It's a networking event this time. We would love to see you there. Also going to put in a shameless plug for Leading Ladies Luncheon. We don't have a slide for that, and you can only buy virtual tickets. But you can find those on Eventbrite or our website, ndwbc.com. So, thanks.
Awesome. She does lurk beautifully. Oh, and the Paddle Trap. I was just there last night for the Young Professionals Network. Not that I'm a young professional, but my husband was speaking. It's cool. You've got to go check it out. All right. Ooh. Okay. So this is a thing the downtowners put Bismarck into this kind of March Madness where we go head to head with other communities across the nation. Last week we beat Elkhart, Indiana, shamelessly. Okay, no, it was a little close for comfort, but basically they have a bracket. And you go out there, so you can see we passed the first bracket, and we're down. This week we are head-to-head with Northfield, Vermont. They're going to be tough. Each community submits a description of all the cool things that are going on in their community, and then everybody out there can vote for the community they think is the strongest. So please go to strongtowns.org to vote, or do as I did, vote early, vote often, vote with every email address you own. Okay. Oh, that was out loud and recorded. Okay, you may be grateful to know that we've gotten to the part where I'm going to take a seat and we're going to have our presenters join us. Today, as I promised, we're going to have two wonderful organizations share what they are doing. And I think you're really going to be absolutely delighted with what you hear. For Bismarck Public Schools, their innovation pathway, this is going to be their first time on the stage, but they're also very, very fresh and new. I think in their alpha, they'll talk to you about that. And then after they are done, we're going to have Patrick with Golden Path Solutions join us. And you may recall he was first on our stage in 2019, but a lot has happened since then, and we asked him to come back and share what has happened in the last couple of years. All right? But without further ado, I'm going to ask Pat and David with Business Public Schools to come up and join us.
Thanks, Sonia. Thank you. Good morning. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you, Janya, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, Tyler, for all of the help getting all of this organized. And we're really excited to be here. And I also want to send a shout out to our friends back there from the Innovation School. Just a quick point of clarification. The Innovation Pathway is Bismarck Public Schools project. The Innovation School is a private organization, but we have so much in common. And we really are looking forward to learning from and with you guys in the future. So I can't wait to hear what you think about this, and I'm hoping that you've got some questions and some ideas for us as we move into the discussion. So to start out, my name is Pat Phillips. I'm a systems innovator with Bismarck Public Schools, and most of the time when I tell people that, they say, oh, a systems innovator, what is that? What do you do? And I say, I'll let you know when I figure it out. But the fact of the matter is that it's my job to work to ensure the systemic conditions in our schools so that all of our students, every single one of them, have the opportunity to thrive. And I'd like to introduce my partner in crime today.
Yeah, good morning. My name is David St. Peter. I'm the main teacher in the Innovation Pathway this year. Like was mentioned, it's our first year. We started small, and so there's just one full-time teacher, and that's me. So I'm an English teacher. It's my 4th year with Bismarck Public Schools. It's my 2nd year tackling high school English. And I think of myself like the mother hen, helping make this thing happen at the Career Academy every day.
So I am going to share with you a problem that we face with public education and talk to you about some questions that we've been trying to answer. And then David is going to tell you a little bit more about the current prototype that we have that could potentially be a viable solution to those challenges and problems. And I'm going to start out like this. Here's you. This is high school you, right? And the reason that you got up and dragged yourself out of bed every morning, like my senior and my 8th grader this morning, 7 snooze buttons later, was to get your diploma, right? But what does that diploma really mean, and what does that diploma really represent? Why do you need it? What are you getting it for? And is it the same diploma that everyone else gets? Is that what we really want for our learners and our community? So at Bismarck Public Schools, we recently completed a 5-year strategic plan that starts this year and ends in 2025, and that process involved a lot of community input, and our community gave us a mandate. They said, your mission for the next 5 years is to empower every learner to thrive, not to engage learners, not to graduate students, to empower people. Every learner, not all learners. I was in some of the community feedback meetings, and that was a very specific point that they made between the singular and the plural, right? So our focus is on personalization. So let me share with you a little bit about what that challenge presents to us as a district when our community says, hey, go out and empower every learner to thrive. Our school system is predicated on a push curriculum, right? We have a bunch of classes, we offer them all to learners, we say, you have choice, right? Except, these are the classes that the state says you have to take. And based on your test scores, these are the classes that we think you probably should take. And then way out here on the edges, there are some opportunities for you to make some choices based on the boxes that we have for you, if you can complete all of the other stuff that we've decided is the most important, right? That's a challenge when you're trying to empower every learner. So you end up with this linear path to graduation, and you've got some choices in these different boxes, right? And you end up with a high school diploma. That's what the system was designed to do. It works really well, right? It's been around since the 1920s, 30s, since post-World War I, Great Depression era. This is the Prussian foundation of a public education system, right? But it's really that track idea. And we have a ton of amazing teachers. This is not an indictment of our educators, nor is it an indictment of the effort that's put forth on the daily by our learners in our schools, right? But our system does exactly what it was designed to do, right? So when you think about that track, if you want to get from point A to point B, we can put you on a track and we can help keep you on that track. But every once in a while, for some learners, that means that you're going to end up wanting a little more, or wondering what's out there on the other pieces that this track doesn't take me to. Or what if the destination at the end of this track isn't really the destination that I had in mind as a young adult, as a learner, as a potential contributor to our community and our society? So our challenge in education is personalization, right? How do we refocus that model on the learner, right? What does that look like? Our teachers are constantly doing this in the classroom every day. I want to be clear about that. They're very focused on how can I make this relevant and meaningful for learners, but they're still working inside that matrix of boxes. So when you think about what any individual learner needs, they may need more or less time on certain subjects or on certain ideas based on their capacity, based on their interest, based on any external factors that we don't have any control over. They also might need different ways to go about engaging with that material, right? So when we think about a personalized path to education, and when we talk about the innovation pathway, we're talking about choices for learners about what they learn, how they learn it, and how long they spend doing that. And so this is the challenge that we face. How do we do this? Bismarck Public Schools has over 13,000 students that walk through our doors every single day. And I'm going to let David tell you a little bit about our project.
Yeah, so we have an elevator pitch, and this is what we used this fall as we started to kind of understand what we were trying to do, and as we were pitching this to the kids we're trying to recruit for next year. So it's for any student, which is a key thing, right? When we first started talking about the innovation pathway, it made it sound like it was a program, right? We're not a remedial program. We're not an advanced program. We're not targeting the middle. It's for any student. And what's key in the innovation pathway is they need to want to focus on their passions and interests, which you would hope all of our students want to do, right? It's a personalized learning experience like Pat mentioned. You heard him say that it's traditional school is a push curriculum, right? When I think about last year at the high school I was at, when students came to me for English 12, I had this package. I said, here's what we're going to do this year, right? We're going to start with Beowulf. In the winter, we're going to tackle the senior paper. We're going to do some job prep stuff. Like, it's all just pushed on them. There wasn't a lot of voice and choice. Within those units, there might have been voice and choice, but they didn't really get to control the learning. This year is completely different. It's also, one of our focuses was they needed to be in a CTE course, right? So we're housed at the Career Academy. So this one stipulation to be engaged, I know we said any student, but it needed to be any student in a CTE course. So that's career and technical education. So the 14 students that I ended up with this year are in things like graphic design, auto tech, aviation, agriculture, welding. They needed to have that CTE area on their schedule. But the main way that it's different in the pitch, like I said, this winter we gave the learners, was unlike your traditional classes. So I'll speak from my English perspective. Unlike English at your home school, this experience is going to empower you to add value to your community. Okay, so our primary focus when a student is in the innovation pathway, like that first tier of thing that they should always be engaged in, is a community project. And we'll talk about those a little bit more later. But if you think back to your high school English experience, that first tier thing was probably the texts and the writing that your teacher decided was important for you to do. We're saying that the first tier most important thing that you should be focused on is adding value to the Bismarck Mandan community through authentic community-embedded projects. The standards we still have to meet, right? In English 11 and English 12, I have 17 essential standards that students need to demonstrate mastery of. And we do that through competency-based learning, which we'll talk again about in a second. So on the right-hand side, you've got the four values, which are the same as on this slide of the, Bismarck Public Schools in our new strategic plan. These were our 4 core values, and we've just copied them because we believe that what we're doing in the innovation pathway aligns with that perfectly. So that has manifested into our 5 SOPs, right? Our standard operating procedures. This is how we do school in the innovation pathway. So like I mentioned, the first is authentic projects. It's not like a math problem. It's not a fake thing that a teacher contrived and said, here's a problem you're solving. No, it's an authentic problem in the community. So how that's looked is I spent most of the fall just cold calling places. Like, hey, we're the innovation pathway. I've got 14 students. They're in things like graphic design. They can build things. They're problem solvers. What problems do you have that we could help you solve? And our pitch was often, what are your like back burner problems? We don't really want to tackle your mission critical work because they're high schoolers after all. We'd feel super bad if, like high schoolers are allowed to do, if they failed and we impacted your business. But instead, are there back burner things that, we all have those things we've always wanted to do, right? So this picture was one of our very first ones. I called Terry Lincoln at Dakota Zoo and I said, I've got 14 students, we want to help. What's a problem? What's a back burner thing? And behind Joey, you can see they had what Terry called the organized mess, right? It was all these extra building materials that were on the ground. And he said, we want to get them up off the ground before winter. Like, could your students help us build basically a big shelf? And I said, sure, like, let's do it. So the one day, we had these C days, these hybrid days where students were working from home in the fall. So instead, one day, Tony, Joey, and Hannah and I went out to the zoo, and we got started on that project. So maybe that wasn't the greatest example of like demonstrating learning because like you can see these two gentlemen were just using post hole diggers and tiring out their shoulders. But this did feed into an actual cooler project at the zoo, which was after the students solved this problem, Terry said, hey, we sell these geodes in the shop. And I think it'd be super cool if we had a geode cracking device so that when a kid or family bought one, they could crack it in the shop. Like that's the magic, right? Could your students like help me figure that out? And what was so cool is Tony, the same student, because he already had a relationship built with Terry at the zoo, Tony said, yeah, I could figure that out. And so Tony came up with a prototype, and we went to the zoo, and Terry had an idea, and they discussed their ideas. They were both very different ideas for how to crack a geode. And through that discussion and comparison of their prototypes, they came up with a third option that was going to be way better and way more cost efficient. And we're going out there on Friday to talk about next steps. Through that, we see leadership. We have students taking the lead on solving some authentic problems, and we see a lot of innovation. Like, if I could show you Tony's prototype, it's pretty sweet for how to crack a geode. Another one of our standard operating procedures is we always work in collaborative teams, right? There's never been a project where a student is just tackling it alone. We always let them bounce those ideas off each other and bring in peers to help as they can. Like I mentioned, we have 14 learners. Some are taking an English credit, some are taking a math credit, some are pursuing a government and econ credit. They've got all these standards they need to be hitting. And so some of those standards come through these projects, right? Others don't. But in doing those projects, they always grab their peers and help them out. So like this example you see there, Northern Plains Dance said, hey, we're expanding to a new studio. We need some help researching a sprung floor. Like, what are our options? What's it going to cost? So Sean, in the Carhartt hoodie, was kind of tackling that by himself, but when it came time to make the sprung floor, like to make it, he needed some help. So he grabbed one of our math students, Ben, and they started doing some really cool work together to help solve that problem for Northern Plains Dance. Our third standard operating procedure is competency-based learning. So that was the big thing. I know Pat earlier mentioned that. Did you mention our waiver from the state?
I did not.
You didn't. Do you want to quick tell them what the waiver was all about, and then I'll explain how that leads into competency-based learning?
Sure, I'd love to. Really quickly, one of the things that one of our challenges was those boxes, right, and the time requirement. So the Carnegie unit is awarded through seat time measurement. How many hours is the student in class? And we are all about being innovative within the constraints that we're faced and coming up with different solutions, but every once in a while you just have to tweak the rules a little bit to get where you need to go. And so we are lucky enough to live in a very innovative state, and so we worked with the Department of Public Instruction, and we received a seat time waiver that said, we will trade you seat time for guaranteed competency on standards, right? And they were like, let's go. So
yeah, so like I said, our third standard operating procedure is that we operate on competency-based learning. So once a student has demonstrated mastery of the standard, for example, like reading literature 1, the 11th grade standard, they have to demonstrate like 6 I can statements within there, right? And that's stuff that's been developed by the Bismarck Public Schools English PLC. Once that student's demonstrated that, we almost imagine it like they're checking it off, right? And if that's an area of focus for what they plan to do after Bismarck Public Schools, we might spend more time. If that's something that they probably won't ever touch again, it's okay that they've demonstrated competency, and let's focus on something that you're going to use more often in your career, right?
So the other piece, so you can see like the big part of our solution is authentic community embedded work, right? But one of the things that our community told us also is that they have a portrait of a learner, and that portrait of a learner has nothing to do with standardized test scores and everything to do with life skills. Are these learners creative thinkers? Are they resilient? Are they compassionate and empathetic? And so this is another reason that we chose authenticity and authentic community-embedded projects as the context in which we wanted to do this learning with the learners. And of course, it would not be fair of us at all to take a high school learner out of a Cells and Bells classroom and put them into a meeting with a community partner and say, here's your project, good luck with that. Right? And so we work constantly as a team of adults in that room to model some agile practices. We're developing an agile philosophy and an agile mindset. And so we work in agile project management spaces, and we actually support the learners in implementing some of those agile methodologies and practices as well as they work with community partners. So we're wanting to build those success skills, that portrait of a learner from Bismarck Public Schools. And the last piece then of how we do school is, if you think about a traditional classroom, a learner would walk out of there with a body of evidence. That might be a notebook full of notes, some quizzes, some tests that they had taken, maybe a paper that they had written or a project that they did at the end of class. That becomes their body of evidence. That's not the way that we do school. So our learner's body of evidence is an actual portfolio of experiences, skills, aptitudes, reflections, and so that's how we deliver the physical manifestation of that credit, right? That's what we measure competency on to say, here's your credit, here's your Carnegie unit, nice job. Let's go on to the next thing for you.
So one of the ways we're hoping to leverage your experience this morning is by talking about our community projects, right? As hopefully some potential partners sit out in our audience today. So how we've made those community projects happen is with what we call a project charter. So we knew we needed a deep project pool or a backlog of projects because we wanted things that would engage any of our learners, right? We didn't want to say, here's a project, this is yours, Cole, because it's the only one I got, right? I want to say, here's all our projects, which one looks like it would be a problem you could help solve? So we got a couple examples, right? We've got some awesome projects happening right now with a lot of awesome organizations in town. The one that I've been really loving so much is this Global Neighbors one. So Global Neighbors is an awesome organization we have here in town that supports refugees when they come to Bismarck. And when I talked to Leah Hargrove, I said, we're the Innovation Pathway. We've got students who want to solve problems. What's some back burner work? How can we help? And she said, there's this place in Portland that has this really cool map that they give to their new people to their city that shows all the awesome resources that they have in town. And I've always wanted us to have something like that we could give people who are new to Bismarck of their resources and stuff. And so to solve that problem, two of our students, they dove into it, and they talked to our math teacher who said, have you heard of ArcGIS? It's this really cool mapping program. Like, maybe you could make it a digital map, even though Global Neighbors had asked for just a physical one. We thought we could go above and beyond. And so those two students taught themselves how to use ArcGIS online and built an interactive map that shows all the resources for new people to our community. And they also, because they were working in ArcGIS, they talked to the city and they got the bus routes, and they overlaid the bus routes so that the map is just even more useful for people who are new to our community. But like you can see, tons of great options. So stakeholder feedback is important, right? This December, I just asked our students as we were nearing the halfway point of our year, like, what have you liked about the Innovation Pathway? And so I've got two examples from learners, and then I've got one example from a community partner that we'd wrapped up a project with. So Brianne is like my favorite example because I had Brianne last year at Legacy in 10th grade English, and I definitely didn't serve her needs, right? I was pushing the curriculum, and that curriculum that I pushed was probably too easy, right? But it's hard to differentiate when you've got a class full of 35 students. So this year, I get redemption, right? And I'm able to give Brianne what she needs for where she wants to go in the future. And her career goals are she might want to be a missionary, or she might want to be an author. So the work that she's able to do and the work that we're giving her, both for English and math, is going to get her ready for that career path that she's about to embark on. And like she said, unprompted, she feels like the course material is fit to you instead of the other way around, which, like, I felt redeemed, right? I felt really grateful to hear that from her. The other example was Alt, who, just like me when I was hired, couldn't entirely comprehend what we were getting ourselves into, But now that it's started, it's even better than we could have imagined, right? And Alt has been one of our rock stars in terms of getting community projects going. They're like so organized and such an awesome public speaker. Alt came with me to the Bismarck Public Schools school board meeting a couple weeks ago and was way less nervous than I was and just knocked it out of the park. Like I mentioned, we had some feedback from Laura Gibson. We partnered with the Adult Learning Center, which was super easy because they're right across the street. They also live at the Career Academy like we do. But they had a really short time box project. They wanted to get some supplemental reading materials for the families that they serve. And they had sent out a survey, and so they knew the types of books that these Adult Learning Center patrons' children wanted, but they needed help curating that list, getting a budget for that list, getting that stuff ordered, and getting that stuff delivered before Thanksgiving. And so Lori had some great stuff to say about how awesome our students were, how they were able to think outside the box. Again, on this one, our students came up with an additional solution to help address the problem that they were presented with. They didn't just do the assignment per se, turn it in, and not think about it again.
So Brianne is a great example of really kind of our little tagline for our project, which is, how can you do the work that you need to do for school, but do that in a school that works for you? I'm just going to close by sharing with you the portrait of a learner that our community gave us. These are the skills and aptitudes and attitudes that our community wants from its learners. We are looking for projects. We are looking for experiences for learners that go beyond sitting in a desk. And we are looking for some mentors. Our emphasis is on partnership. So if you have a project, the only ask is that you dedicate about half an hour every week or every 2 weeks to do stakeholder review meetings directly with our learners, give them feedback, monitor the quality of control on your own project, and help them add value, whatever your definition of that is for you. And David and I will take care of the school stuff on the back end to make sure that those learners graduate from those experiences. You can use this bit.ly to go online and submit a project proposal, and someone will get back to you. We're currently collecting project proposals for learners for next fall. So think about some back burner work that you want to get done next fall, and we can plan it out over the summer, and you can help us continue to build this. Thanks for the time.
Thanks.
That was fantastic, guys. I'm not even going to bother to get up on stage because I'm going to hand it over to Patrick. Wow, are you just like reeling and going, oh, that was so super cool? And now you're going to see super cool squared. Here we go, right? All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Janya. And don't you guys leave afterwards. I want to talk to you. So first, I just want to say how great it is to be back here in Bismarck. This is a great venue, a great event. Janya and Evan, you've been great supporters. It's good to see other folks in the audience that we've talked with. And Tyler, thank you for taking my deck, I think, last night at about 9:45 last night. So definitely working late. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Golden Path Solutions. I want to go through a little bit what we do, because some of you might not know who we are, or you might not have been at the presentation we did here back in August, I think, of 2019. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about what we've learned since we started on this journey, and kind of our momentum since we started this. I think we became an official company in 2019, and it's just been a whirlwind of activity, of learning, and just kind of moving along. And so I want to share some of that with you all today. Okay? I went the wrong way. Okay, so at the highest level, what is it we're trying to do? What is our mission? And really what we kind of focus on two things. We really want to help students, and when we say students, we're thinking high school and higher ed students, figure out what their natural talents are based on their experiences that they've had so far, and then connect that talent with employers that desperately need that talent. If you think about what we're trying to do, in some ways it's helping students plan for the future, it's helping employers plan for the future, and how do we build a platform working with schools that kind of helps facilitate all this? Our audiences are really these four entities: employers, schools, students, and communities. And the communities piece is something that we learned a little bit as we kept going on this journey. With employers, what we do, and I'll show you how we do this, is we really want to get their information in front of students who might not have any idea what a company does or the career opportunities that a company might have. And how do we help companies do that in a scalable way? A lot of companies might have a person that goes to a career fair or works with 3 or 4 schools in a region. How do we help expand that reach so they can find talent in places that they might not normally get to? With schools, we want to help them create tighter partnerships with employers, particularly on curriculum needs. You'll see a little bit later, we're working with Microsoft. And one thing that we got asked by Microsoft is, we would love it if schools taught cloud infrastructure. They're not teaching that today. They're still focusing on technology or on wired networking. Those are the types of things that we want to hear from employers, and then we can give that to schools so they can update their curriculum. And we also want to give them tools for career planning to help manage that process with students. With students, we want to help them find their career path and potentially get help finding a job when they graduate and even getting help with tuition reimbursement. And finally, for communities, we want to help communities retain their local talent, and we also want to help them grow their local economies. And we're hearing this a lot from some of the smaller communities that have brain drain. Students leave and they don't come back. But they also have companies that need talent, they need workers. So how do we facilitate that? So we're trying to do a lot with Golden Path Solutions. And there are many, many different ways that different organizations and groups are approaching this problem. The way that we do it is described on this slide. This is an infographic that has evolved a little bit, but if you were here almost 2 years ago, you would have seen a version of this. But the very first step is we're working separately with employers and with students. So with employers, what we do is we first figure out what are the jobs that you need, what are the things that are critical to your business, what do you need help, what do you need to have to grow, to continue to grow. And this is a long-term view. It's not like, what do I need tomorrow? It's like, what do I need 2-3 years from now? These could be entry-level jobs, like a welder. They could actually be a really unique job that requires a pretty unique skill set and a pretty unique education combination. We build what's called a career profile that is intended to help students understand what is it like to do that job, what's a day in the life look like, what are the experiences that I'm having today that might predict that I would love this job in the future. We try to build this in the student's language. And we don't just focus on the classes, but we focus on what are the activities that you might be in? What are the things that you might like to do in your free time? What are those experiences that might help you understand if this is a great career for you? And also career path information, salary, and all that good stuff. With a student and with schools, we've built a technology called Compass that basically we are rolling out right now in schools across the state, including Minnesota. And what that does is it lets a student enter in information about their experiences as a student. So what classes have they taken? What activities are they in? What hobbies and interests do they have? And also information about their personality and their career aspirations. And we really try to focus on the experiences that a student has, and not just school experiences, but what do they like to do in their free time? Because like what you guys are doing, we believe that predicting a student's success isn't about what classes they've taken or how they did in them from a grade perspective. We may actually find that the best person at a specific career might not have been very good in school at all because they weren't interested. But what might predict that they were good is what they did in their free time. We had one student that we talked to who taught himself machining in his garage. That's amazing, and that's the type of information that we want to use to help that student understand a career path that might work for them. The second step is we bring these things together in Compass. So we take that profile that we built for an employer, we put that in the application so that all students can see it, and then in the application we also can tell a student if they're a good fit for that job. So we can kind of help the student understand if they might be a good match, they can learn more about the job, and in the app the student can also tell us if they might be interested in getting actually connected with an employer, and that leads to the third step. The third step is where it's not required, not every student's gonna wanna do this and not every employer offers sponsorships, but the goal here is if there's an employer that is looking for a certain skill set and a certain raw talent, how do we connect them with that raw talent earlier in the process in a way that works for both? The goal would be, with a sponsorship, that a student could get a job doing something that they love, they would get help with education, paying for higher ed, because an employer might want them to get a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, maybe it's an apprenticeship, a certification, whatever it is, But at the end of the day, that employer is going to sponsor that student in exchange for a work agreement. And what we want to do in that model is leverage programs that like the state of North Dakota has put together. If anybody in the room is familiar with the North Dakota Career Builders program, we're trying to leverage models like that, but extend it for every student and give every employer the opportunity to use sponsorships to secure their future workforce. And you can see where that might play into communities. We're working with a gentleman in Devil's Lake where Devil's Lake, the city, is helping do some of these sponsorships to keep talent local. And we're starting to see models where that can be replicated across the state, particularly in more rural communities. So that's kind of the overall model that Golden Path is trying to build. This is some screenshots of the application that we built. This is for the students. We've got a counselor view, and you can see an example, the first page of some of the career profiles that we've done. One of the things that we're learning with students is they've got a lot going on. There's a lot that's driving them, trying to get their attention. So we've been spending a lot of time, how do we make Golden Path engaging for students and simple? So we've also been building like email templates that we can send to students to help them walk through the process. We actually, if you can see how it works, that first step, we actually had a high school student in Fargo do a training video for us that now walks students through setting up Golden Path. We've got an Instagram account because I guess you can't be a company anymore without an Instagram account. Although I think we've already missed the boat because now we're hearing that TikTok is the thing, and that scares the bejesus out of me. We actually have an agency in Fargo whose target audience is Gen Z. So the funny thing too, we do some memes on here, and I never get the memes. And they actually say that's a good thing that you don't get it. That means that they're good and they're appropriate. But there's a lot that goes into this. I'm sure some of the counselors in the room, students aren't always as responsive as we'd like them to be, and we want to make sure that a student isn't missing out on an opportunity that could be a great fit for them. So in terms of where we're at as a company, so like I said, when we were here in 2019, we were pretty new. I think we had a couple companies that we had done some profile work with, and we might have had a prototype of the application. Well, now from a school perspective, we are licensed in 39 schools and with 6,000 students. We actually qualified for some grants offered by the Career and Tech Ed department here in Bismarck. So that's been awesome. We've been able to secure licenses for all of the great Northwest schools, which includes Watford, Williston, and some of those larger communities, and also for the NESC schools like Devil's Lake and the surrounding area. Starting to talk with the central region and also the southeast region on that. But you can see the schools that we've got live. What we do is we load their curriculum, whatever that curriculum is, if it's a traditional curriculum or if it's an innovation pathways curriculum, and then we basically roll it out to their students. At the same time, then we start working with employers. And you can see some of the employers that we're working with down here. And I would say that this model, it's interesting because we're getting interest from a variety of industries. A lot of manufacturers were the first ones that kind of signed up because they need welders and machinists. But Microsoft is doing software developers and also CES engineers, like kind of a customer experience and success role. We've got Bobcat, who's doing both welders, but also manufacturing engineers. And you can see some other companies that are up there. We have our first banking company now that just came on board. So that's cool, because we want to really offer an opportunity to every student that has maybe every specific, or every talent or every interest and might want to do different types of careers. We don't want to just have opportunities for one type of student. You can see some matches that we've done. So Tyler Knott is going into machining. He's actually now almost done with his first year at NDSCS. We talked to him. He just loves machining. We took him to the company that he's sponsored by and he'll be working at. And he was literally telling us about all the different machines that were in the factory, and he just was super excited. So it was one of those obvious examples where we kind of found his passion. And Kelly is going to be an LPN at Sanford. Her ultimate goal is to be an RN. And she had some of those experiences that indicated like empathy and working with others. And she was really interested in the medical field. So we were able to get her connected with Sanford Health. Some other highlights since we've been here, we have gotten some interest in organizations that are providing funding. The top one is interesting. The Venn Foundation is out of Minneapolis, and they basically work with foundations and charitable donors to create program-related investments that then they can give to companies like Golden Path in the form of a convertible note. And the cool thing about that is they really like for companies to have a social purpose. So we use that as an opportunity to add a social purpose to our bylaws. North Dakota doesn't have a classification for a social company, so we had to do it a little bit different. But that helps us articulate that we're not necessarily in this to make money. We obviously need to be a business, but we really want to help our audiences. And the second bullet there is pretty exciting for us. We just got approved for a Lyft technology loan in North Dakota with the Department of Commerce. So we're going to be using those dollars both to onboard some additional people and also to flush out the application that we started building. So there's just been a lot going on with us in terms of getting things ramped up and getting things going, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. So the last thing that I'll do is I'll share with you what we've learned. So again, the venue for this, it's for entrepreneurs to talk about their journey and also to introduce ourselves to you. Since we've been here before, I'll take a little bit of time just to share what we've learned since we were first here. So on workforce development specifically, that's kind of what we're doing. How do we help everybody prepare for the future workforce? This is getting a lot of attention. The more that we kind of learn and the more that we talk to different communities, everybody's trying to solve this problem in a different way, and it's awesome. It's really been inspiring because there's just so many great minds that are really trying to do this. Some of it is very specific and regional, and some of it is a little bit broader and statewide. Sometimes it doesn't move as fast as we would like, but what we want to do is how can we help move that on, and how can we also create connections even with our ecosystem. I actually have some connections that I want to make for you guys if you haven't already made them. Communities really do want to retain talent, and this goes not just for communities like small rural communities like Devil's Lake, but even communities like Bismarck and Fargo. And it's actually kind of an interesting tension that we have. Fargo might want to recruit people to Fargo. Bismarck wants to do the same. Devil's Lake wants to keep people local. So we're trying to figure out how do we create incentives for either employers or even students to stay local? Or what does the model look like if they go away and come back? Does that provide some opportunities? These are, again, things that we're trying to figure out. And there is a lot of innovation that's happening, even just like we just heard. There's a lot of different people that are trying to solve this problem. What we are trying to decide ourselves is, do we want to be a platform to help facilitate that? Do we want to be a platform and an organization that is trying to generate these connections ourselves? And that could be a path that our company takes as we continue moving forward. From the perspective of a startup, so yeah, we were nothing. I mean, this basically was just an idea before 2019. The first bullet is really interesting. Innovation is key and drives your roadmap. What we found is that every time we hit a hurdle, we have to solve it. And actually, that solving of that hurdle changes our strategy and our roadmap. It could be a feature in our application. It could be a process. One of the reasons we built those email templates is because we thought to ourselves, if a counselor shares the URL with Golden Path with a student, and a student isn't good at their keeping email, are they going to lose the URL? How do they get back in? And if they don't bookmark it, how do we make it easy for them? Customers are always going to help drive the solution. So we really want to get feedback from our employers, from our students, and from our schools on what are the features that make sense to you. We're actually going to be starting to do some work on integrations with state systems. So we want to talk to counselors and be like, what is it that you need sent over to state systems? What would be best? Would students use the system more if we had integration with PowerSchool, for example, one of the e-transcript courses? We've talked about badging. There's different needs that schools need, different ideas that they have. How do we incorporate that into our roadmap? And also, how do you pay for that? Because again, we have to think about that. Community partnerships are critical, especially when getting in front of employers. So we've had great partnerships with Svita, which is down in Wahpeton, Justin Neppel. He's introduced us to a lot of companies and trying to help us build that ecosystem. And in Forward Devil's Lake, Brad Barth, if any of you know that gentleman, we're having conversations here in Bismarck with Brian Ritter. We're having conversations in Williston with Sean Wanko with the EDC, because they are in some ways trying to solve this same problem. How do they help their communities thrive? How can we be a part of that? And how can we leverage their ecosystem and their network to kind of get that started for Golden Path? Resources are available. If any of you are entrepreneurs out there, the state of North Dakota has actually been fantastic in terms of supporting entrepreneurship with the loans that are available, the Innovate ND program. People are just willing to give their advice and their input. I'm looking at the front row here, supporting entrepreneurs that are on this journey. And if any of you want to talk to me about who we found or the programs that we found success with, let me know. The other thing I'll say, their advisors and champions are critical too. If you get a couple champions in a community, they're great at doing introductions, and we've really, really leveraged that as much as possible without being annoying. We don't want to annoy anybody. And then finally, the last bullet, I think, is actually one of our biggest assets, but it also might be one of our largest challenges, which is how do we really get students engaged in this system? Not just from the perspective of making sure Compass is up to date and exploring solutions, but really seeing this as a tool for them that might actually help them find that future path, help with tuition. They could actually gain some real insight. And I think as we continue to work with schools and counselors on this, as we continue to talk to students in their language versus our language, and even partnerships with different people that are trying to connect with students in a different way, I think this is gonna happen more and more. Because for us to be successful, for Golden Path to be successful, we really need a thriving community of employers, a thriving community of students, and really schools that are seeing the value and working with us. If we can figure all that out, I think we will continue to see a lot of success with Golden Path. So I think that is, I just have my contact information up here, but I'm sure that will be on the website. So I want to say thank you, everybody, for letting me come back and chat with you guys. Thanks to all of you on the phone. Thanks, Janya and Evan and Tyler. You guys are awesome. And I think we'll do Q&A now. Yep. Do you want to click anywhere? Or I'll let you click
Please come on up. All right, I'm sure we don't have any questions in the audience at all. Okay, I'm kidding. Evan, I knew it, Scott. Evan is our mug runner today, so if you catch his attention, he will bring you the mighty mug with the mic in it. All right, Scott.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for presenting today. And the question, I suppose, is for all of you guys. I love the term learners because learning continues well after school. Obviously, the pivoting continues too. And I know job service works a lot with trying to retrain and educate people as industries pivot and require different skills. Are you guys partnering with programs like theirs to see what learns from more of that VOTech area to incorporate in your programs, or how does that mesh?
You guys want to go first, or?
Sure. Yeah. I just have a quick response for you, which would be we're always looking for that. Our program is focused on juniors and seniors and their matriculation into whatever post-secondary option that they choose, but it's actually the three ladies behind you who are career advisors that are another huge part of our team that would really be a great connection to help leverage some of those things for our learners. And also that I really appreciate that point about learners. One of the things that at Bismarck Public Schools, when we talk about our portrait of a learner, we talk about that's our teachers too. That's our staff. That's our administrators, right? We're a learning organization, and we all need to be continuously learning.
Yeah, I just add to that. We've talked to job service a little bit through the work we've done with the Workforce Development Council. And so some of the things that we've been exploring is integrations with some of the job service boards, particularly around apprenticeships. Eventually, we would like to take our model and our algorithm and apply that not just to students, but also people that are in their career. There's absolutely no reason why somebody like me that has a certain talent couldn't get sponsored by an employer to go back to school, maybe for whatever. It's just a different set of data that we need to look at. So that's part of our vision, how to help people that are maybe in career looking for their second one and partnering with job service on some of those models.
Awesome, thank you, great question. Okay, we've got one way up in the back.
I was wondering, what is the success rate of students like getting through high school in your new program compared to a just normal school?
That's a really super excellent question. We're in alpha right now, so I'm happy to say that our success rate this year is 100%, which I think is representative of 3 or 4 seniors.
Yeah, all 4 are going to finish. Yeah.
But I love that question because the idea behind competency-based learning is that success rate becomes a metric that gets left in the dust, right? That competency means everybody learns what they need to learn to become a self-actualized contributor to our community.
Okay, I have a question for both of you. So I think I'm going to dovetail, because I think for any students who are watching or parents, they're going to think, who are those kids that really thrive, that you've seen really thrive? And this is really for both of you, that, that take full advantage, that really get totally engaged. So if you could kind of, and for entrepreneurs, we call that our ideal customer, right? Who's your ideal customer?
I think, like we shared in our elevator pitch, it's for students who want to pursue their passions and interests more. So we have a few students who might not have been succeeding in traditional school, but they were super passionate about their thing that they really like, right? So when we then let them explore that more through their English work or explore that more through their community projects, some have another testimonial say, like, it's the most engaged I've felt in my classes.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think what we're trying to do is how do we figure out what a student really loves to do, and then laser focus in on that, and then use the sponsorship piece or the employer connection as a way to let that student explore that particular career, and also understand that they might be a great fit for that, even though maybe there are other things that their teachers or their peers love about school, but they don't like because it's not really important to them. I was an English major in college. We can recite poetry afterwards if we want. But this student that I was talking about, that as a machinist, he didn't really enjoy those classes and didn't do that well in them. But that doesn't mean that he was failing. It just means that wasn't his thing. So if we can help those students figure out what their thing is, for example, in our application, a student tells us what classes they've taken, but they tell us if they loved it, and they tell us if they didn't like it, because we think that's important, not just what your grade was or if you took it or not, because in some cases they don't even have a choice.
Right, hallelujah.
So how do we, and then also by looking at activities and hobbies and interests, the things outside of the classroom, we can also help that student narrow down on what their passions are and then create those connections that ultimately is going to lead to their happiness and their success.
Thank you. I think we've got another question from way up top.
Hi. I was wondering how you're gonna roll this out to like more kids.
I love the way you think. Are you interested?
Yes.
That's such a great question. Really, like, I'm going to go a little bit out of my lane as an educator and try to put it in business terms. I think what we're talking about here is economies of scale, right? So at what point does this model start to deliver diminishing returns? And then how do we leverage that? So to answer your question specifically, I think our goal right now is to continue to spin up our team. Next year we're tripling our student enrollment. We're adding another full-time personalized learning facilitator, and then we've also got cooperating teachers at all of the schools. So we're gonna try to grow this in an organic fashion, and we're gonna pay close attention to when we hit the point of diminishing returns so that we can stop there and then restart another seed program.
Thank you. Looks like we have a question coming in from social media.
Hello. So thank you. This is cool. I wish that I would have had something like this when I was in school, because I just think it's so important to be able to follow your passions your whole career. You've got a question from social media. Roxanne wants to know, do you take accommodations and modifications into account for competency-based learning students?
Yep, yeah, this year we've got one student on an IEP, and I'm guessing as we triple our student numbers, we'll see many more come in. Like I mentioned, it's a program for any student who wants to do school this way, and there's no barrier to that.
And I think that one of the things that's kind of core to our philosophy is that in our system right now, there tends to be this sort of dichotomous relationship between extension for learners and remediation for learners. And we don't really think that those two things are mutually exclusive. We think that extension is possible for all learners at an developmentally appropriate level.
All right. Well, I've got a quick one, and then I know we're pushing it on time, but I just have to ask too, because we took a poll a little while ago. We're really into data, and 65% of our audience is identify as entrepreneurs. So both of you, what is so interesting to me is you're both engaging the business community in what you're doing in education. Those things always felt so separate, right? We just ship them off to school, and you're pulling it in. How have you found that relationship to be? And also, if there are businesses out there that want to get engaged with you, what would be the best way?
Yeah. what we have found is that everybody wants these connections, but they're just, maybe they don't have time to make them, or they don't know how to make them. When we've been working with people in the schools on Golden Path, the counselors that we talk to, they're just so eager to get their students connected with employers and also talk to employers and bring them in. In fact, we're trying to figure out how do we help find ways of doing that in a more scalable way, because everybody only has so much time and they don't have, like I said, they might not have enough people to go out and do broad outreach to a lot of different schools or a lot of different employers. How do we help facilitate that? But I think employers realize that students are their future, and schools and counselors and school administrators know that for them to be successful, students are going to have to be successful in their careers. So it's been a very awesome relationship. If people want to get in touch with Golden Path, go to our website. We have a contact me form that's out there, and or you can send me an email directly at patrick@goldenpath.net. But yes, we'd love to talk to you if you think that this model would work for you, or if it's just something that you want to use to get in front of students and be part of our ecosystem that we're hoping to build.
Yeah, and I would just add, I've been lucky enough to work at the Career Academy for a large portion of my career at Bismarck Public Schools, and one of the things that I've learned over the course of that time is that career and technical education is a little bit of a misnomer. All education is career education, right? And so I think that the more that we let go of the idea that there's school, cells and bells, and then there's the real world. Like, every single one of those learners out there today is a part of the real world, no matter which building they're in. Every single one of our adult learners, lifelong learners, are a part of the real world. That's an invidious distinction, right? And so the more we realize that, the more we'll be able to kind of leverage the resources of both of those areas of our community. And so, of course, we're looking for projects. We have that bit.ly link. That's a great way to contact us. You can reach out to Bismarck Public Schools. You can reach out directly to the Career Academy. Our advisors have a wonderful website if you want to talk to our career advisors. And just really quick, I just want to throw in a huge thank you. I missed the opportunity to thank Megan Sharp, who's back there with the Innovation School. Megan was extremely instrumental in helping us to get this program off of the ground. And so, huge thank you to you, Megan, for the work and the passion that you put into this.
Fantastic. Yay. I think you may have partially answered our last question for the day. I probably stole that a little bit, but you may still have something else there. So Evan, if you'd be so kind, we always ask this question.
You bet. A little comment first, too. Johnny and I just started a stint teaching at some junior achievement curricula at BHS yesterday, and it's really neat to see so much overlap. They're doing a lot of creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, a lot of the things that we've heard about here. So I don't know if Junior Achievement is a partner at this point with your organizations, but just wanted to throw that out there as potential. And the last question we always ask, and I think this is really pertinent, I can't think of more important work than what you guys are doing. And so that question is, what can we as the Bismarck Mandan Million Cups community do to ensure your success, to help you guys be successful?
I can start. I would just say, remember us, like think of us. When you have those back burner projects, or you hear another business or a friend, a community member talking about some work that they have always wanted to get done, remember that at the Career Academy, we have a lot of students with some serious skills. They've got capacity, and then through us, with our competency-based framework, they have time to do that work. So to help us succeed, just think of us, call us at the Career Academy, and offer us your projects.
And I would just quickly add from my system innovators lens, we're looking for a sustainable solution, right? And our solution is, after our alpha test and into our beta year next year, potentially a viable solution, but we don't know if it's sustainable yet. So we also would love feedback to see if this type of a back burner, below the resource line, student empowerment model works for our partners in the community.
Yeah, and I would say, it seems like most people at the end of a Million Cups, they will say, tell others about us, help people know what we're doing, think of us. If we can work with even people here in the room or online, if there are ideas you have about how we can help solve a problem for you, please reach out to us. But the other thing I would say, too, is like I said, there's a lot of innovation happening in this space with what you guys are doing, with what we're seeing in different communities, different schools. And one thing specifically for Golden Path is we're still fairly young, and we're still building this company. So I would also like to challenge you, if there are things that you've seen or ideas you have, even as a result of listening to this conversation, challenge us with those ideas or present us with that problem, because we might be able to use technology or our ecosystem or the network we're building to help solve that problem that maybe we don't even know exists yet. As an entrepreneur, I would love to look back 5 years from now and say, we really did know what we were after and what problems our audiences were having, and we tackled those, versus get so far down the path that we look back and say, we should have done that thing, we just didn't know about it. So please communicate those sorts of things to us. That would be fantastic.
Awesome. Well, let's give a huge round of applause to these two. I don't know about the rest of you, but I feel completely inspired and I want to go back to school. And I rarely say that. Well, if you had fun today, come back next week. We are going to have a couple of our finalists or winners from the Bismarck Pitch Challenge. We'll know who they are tonight. We're going to go learn that. And then on April 7th, we have Bisman Food Co-op is going to come and present. And we also have, on that day, we have Joel and Alyssa Land are going to be back to do a little random act of art. And if you've heard them sing, you are going to want to be here for that. And then on April 14th, we have a podcast panel. I think we have 4 different folks that put on podcasts, including Mike Seminary, I think Marlo, I think you might be, your name's in there, so I don't know if you know about it yet, but you know, you're gonna be here. But it'll be great. If you've ever wondered what the heck is a podcast, or you listen to podcasts, it's your chance to talk to some of the folks who actually make those happen. And then just remember, if these guys look like they were having fun up here, you can always apply to present. So if you'd like to see yourself in lights and be up here on stage, it's not too bad, right, guys? It's kind of fun?
Super fun.
Okay, it's super fun. So they had a great time. So please go on out to 1millioncups.com/bizman and click on Apply to Present. I think that's all we have for you. Otherwise, just network. I know these guys are really dying to just start talking to each other. So, but mill around, grab some more coffee on the way out, because what you don't drink, Evan and I have to take home with us. Okay, see you next week.